Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm so happy you're with us today. My dear friends, our guests today are always a special treat. I think that by now everyone knows their story, and it's an amazing story. Just the other night, I was answering some questions for a Facebook group that's based in the United Kingdom, and the first thing someone said was, I want you to know that I have just started reading Flying High in Spirit, Mikey Morgan's book, and it's wonderful, and wonderful it truly is. I first met Carol Morgan perhaps a dozen years ago now at an afterlife conference, just a few years after she had lost her older son, Mikey, in an auto accident. It turned out that Mikey was a sixth-level being who had last lived on Earth in the 1600s and who wanted very much to be able to help us. So he took an extra voluntary Earth lifetime in 1987 that ended in 2007 when he was 20 years old, just so he could speak to us and sound modern and he wouldn't sound ancient and quaint. So this is no usual mother and son situation, and Carol never knew until he started telling her who he was. Carol swears she never signed up for this, but indeed she did. Mikey Morgan started out as an ascended being. He just wanted to help humankind. And when she finally was convinced about all of this, she learned how to communicate for him, and he was communicating through her, and they finally convinced me that this is actually what was going on. And the result has been a remarkable, remarkable partnership. He does what he does so extremely well. He doesn't sound like a modern American kid. He sounds like who he is, but he speaks so well through her. I have tested him exhaustively, and over more than a decade and hundreds of questions, I've never seen him make a mistake. I've spent more than 50 years researching the afterlife and the greater reality, and his answers are always dead on accurate, pardon the pun, dead on accurate, as they say. And he often adds then an interesting twist that I didn't know about, but I might have been wondering about. This is truly an amazing, amazing situation. And for Mikey to have come back this way voluntarily to do this for us was considered to be such a sacrifice. Just to take a lifetime on Earth was a sacrifice that apparently it has raised his spiritual vibration tremendously from near the bottom to near the top of the sixth level. So Mikey at this point communicates with us from very near the Godhead level. His answering our questions this way is a gift to us, a gift of service. Now, Mikey and Carol are our guests today on Seek Reality for the 19th time. Welcome, welcome, dear Carol and Mikey. It's so good to have you back with us again.
Thank you, Roberta. Here we are. Here we go. We're ready. So we're happy to be
ready,
back.
And Mikey is always ready. And what I love about Mikey is he does sound like a modern American kid. And I have to keep reminding myself, too, about what he actually is and who he actually is. Everybody else who communicates from that level is communicating as a representative of thousands of advanced beings, and they always sound stiff and quaint. And then Mikey comes and he talks to us, and he sounds so sort of normal and as if he's, he could any moment just jump on a skateboard. It's really quite amazing, or a snowboard in his case. So these questions we just want to explain have been asked in advance. And if you want to ask a question of Mikey, the easiest way is just to send me an email through my website. Just go to robertagrimes.com and go to there's a green contact block there. Just ask me the question. I send it to Carol, and she asks Mikey. And just briefly explain, Carol, how you asked Mikey the question.
So I will get your questions that you send me, and I sit down with my pendulum. I still use my pendulum mainly kind of for confirmation as in regards to what I hear from him telepathically. So our communication skills have improved significantly over the years. I practiced a significant amount, certainly in the beginning. But I take those questions and, I still talk to Mikey out loud. I guess it's a human thing for me as a mother, but I read the questions out loud and I listen, and I work with the pendulum at the same time, and I ask him the question and he gives me the answer, and then I go to the next question and so on. And so that is how I do it. I still use the pendulum every time I do this. It's an important tool that has worked well for me, and I actually love watching it move. So that's how we do it.
And I have to say that until I met Carol and Mikey, I didn't even believe in pendulums. So they have stretched me in many ways. But without further ado, let us begin. So the first question that we have from listeners is, what level or aspect do spirit guides need to be to assist us? And as we know, every one of us has a spirit guide. Nobody comes to Earth without a spirit guide, and they're with us. They help us plan our lives on Earth, and they're with us through life. This question is, at what level are they? Are they at our same level as the individual that they're guiding, or at what level are they?
Mikey tells me that, first of all, we can have more than one. Also, they are generally of a higher vibrational level. They may be close to us, but generally speaking, Mikey says they are of a higher level than we are. And most often, he says too, they are in our soul group. So I think we talked about soul groups before, and Mikey will tell us within our soul groups that we travel with and are with in the afterlife, within that soul group, there are other souls of varying degrees of levels of vibration. And again, everything is energy. The higher our vibration, the more spiritually advanced we are. And so he does say that our guides are most often he always, he doesn't say always, he never says always to very many things, but he says they are of a higher vibration than we are, and they guide us along the way and try to keep us on course the best we can with the experiences that we want to have here. But again, of course, our free will choice varies things along the way, as well as free will choices of others that we interact with while we are here.
Yeah, and again, that's dead on accurate. The most people listening know that Thomas, my own guide, answers my questions frequently, and I've been curious about this too. And he is upper fifth level, and much so considerably above where I would be. And he has told me that he and I are in the same soul group, but my family and most of the people that I know are not in. I'm in a different soul group than they are, because it had been important that I come in at this particular time. And I'm sorry about that. It had been important that I be in at this particular time. So I took a different soul group quite deliberately. To just come in at this particular time. And I get along just fine, though, even though these people that I've known all my life are in a different soul group. But I guess it's more important that we be in the same soul group as our spirit guide than that we be in the same soul group as our family, which to me is a very interesting kind of point. So again, thank you, Mikey. That's very good. All very good to know. Question number 2. Does Mikey get his knowledge from past lives, from educating himself in the afterlife, or is this common knowledge over there once we go back?
So Mikey says his knowledge is from past life experiences and educating himself in the afterlife. It is, the knowledge that we have is the knowledge that we have gained through our experiences, whether it's here or in another dimension, the afterlife, whatever. And so Mikey says that knowledge that we have gained goes with us. He tells me he does not ask others about the information, that the information that he has given through everything we've ever done, Afterlife Forums, the book, all the different podcasts we have been on, has all been from his personal knowledge and experiences that he has gained over however, we're eternal beings, so he just says it's his knowledge. This is his knowledge. He does not ask others. He is providing the knowledge that he himself has.
We have very much greater knowledge when we get there. I remember, because he often is very vivid in the way he talks about things, that when he says when we come to Earth, we sort of pack up most of what we know into a suitcase and we store it there. And I thought that was a rather vivid way to put it. We leave most of our minds behind us when we come to Earth, and because we come to Earth to learn things, and then when we go back, we merge back with our greater minds, and suddenly we know a whole lot more. And he vividly describes that in his book when he talks about remerging with his greater mind, and suddenly he remembered so many things he had forgotten when he came to Earth.
Correct. And that suitcase, or that greater mind, another word, I guess, you can interchange it with higher self. I know people talk a lot about using that term. Mikey just says it's all the knowledge, everything you have gained is that. And so he uses the suitcase as a easy way to explain some things that are, I think, pretty complex, that are kind of beyond what we would understand. But I think that's what's nice about the book, and just in general with Mikey, is he tries to explain things in a simple way that we can understand better.
That's one of the best things about that book. It is so easy to understand, and it's sort of playful, too. It does sound as if it was written by a kid. It very simple to understand, very playful, it's fun to read. I think that's sort of the best thing about the book, really. It's simple to understand and it's fun to read, but you learn so much from it. And third question, and this sort of gets us into what's going on Earth, some of which is not that much fun to understand or read. What is Mikey's perspective on gender as it relates to what's happening here on Earth?
This is such an important question, I think, right now. And I've got a lot of information he has given me on this. And I think this is just so important for people to hear. First of all, Mikey says, in this dimension, we have male and female. Now remember, he is not in a body anymore. He is in spirit. He's a soul. He's in a spiritual state, which is energy. And he has talked about this in the book. And another time I know we've talked about this, where we are souls. We are in the afterlife. We're not male or female. Now, Mikey says on Earth here, male and female to him is what sex you are, whether you have female organs or male organs. Gender to Mikey means, now this is his perspective, gender to him means how we as a soul identify with male or female in this dimension. Mikey says society says that if we have female organs, we are to look and act in a certain way. And as male and having male organs, we are supposed to act and look in a certain way. He says this has developed over years and years and years of society standards, and sometimes it can be religious rules that if you're male, you're this way, and if you're female, you're supposed to be this way. In the afterlife, we're souls. We're neither male nor female. Mikey says it doesn't exist there, okay? We're all the same. He says only in this dimension do we have gender. Now, in this life, we're spiritual beings taking on a physical experience, okay? So it's our earthly shell. Mikey says how our earthly shell is created in this dimension. You need the male and female organs, okay? So we need that to basically create our earthly shell that we have. That's how this dimension works. But Mikey says how we identify with male and female from his perspective is based upon what society says how we're supposed to act, okay? He says in the afterlife, gender and what sex you are means nothing. So he says we come to this dimension because of the challenges that occur because of the differences that have developed here. So Mikey says it is not, God does not care, about these rules because God didn't make the rules. God is love. That's what God is. Right. It is society, the man-made rules that has influenced what has happened here with everything. So society says you're supposed to behave this way. Well, Mikey says, of course, the confusion comes when people have bleed-throughs from previous lives from this dimension. So I think, Roberta, we talked about this before where, Mikey says, let's say you come here, you're a male, 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 you're in a male body. And right. Then you come here and you're a female. Mikey says what happens is those tendencies from the previous life can bleed through. And so you have these influences, and that's where if you can understand it all, the gay society where they're attracted to the same sex, it's really not, it's what they know in this dimension, depending upon if there's a bleed through coming through from previous life experiences, if this makes sense.
Right. I think that's exactly right.
And Mikey says with transgender, he says literally the soul, the bleed through is so strong that the soul feels like I am so uncomfortable. I literally need to change my body. I need to change basically my physical vehicle I'm using here because I don't feel right. And so that's Mikey's take, kind of from his perspective, is he says this is the only dimension, and I know he mentioned this in the book, this is the only dimension where there's gender. And he said gender is how we identify. And he says has nothing to do with God, or he says it has to do with society rules. And he says that's where the confusion comes in, is because society says we're not supposed to have these feelings. See, because you're in a male body, you're only supposed to be attracted to female and vice versa. And Mikey says right. That's simply not a God thing. That's a man-made earthly dimension thing. And so Mikey says, think about it. We come here then, and all this stuff is occurring. And it's sad to me when I see the hate crimes and this and that, when, people we forget that we are souls. And when we return to heaven or the afterlife, he says this, whether you're male or female, means absolutely nothing. It's how you loved and were here is what matters. That's what brings spiritual growth. So he says we take these different differences that we experience here is the whole reason why we come here, because we don't have that in the afterlife. And the challenges are so strong here that it's like, wow, this gives us great potential for spiritual growth pertaining to how we actually act and deal with these situations that we have here in regards to this.
But notice that he's talking about multiple lifetimes. And that's why both of our leading sources of knowledge are so clueless about this, because neither our religions nor science recognize the fact that we live multiple lifetimes. So they are unable to support the people who are confused on Earth. But in fact, that is the source of the problem of why people are unable to help people who feel confused in their bodies now. I was a transgender child. I was confused until I hit puberty. I was confused because I've always been male. I'm now in a female body. It got straightened out perfectly as soon as I hit puberty. And that's going to happen to all these children. 99.99% of the kids who are confused before puberty will be straightened out once they hit puberty. I can testify to that.
Well, and Mikey says that with these bleed-throughs, I mean, and if people would realize that we're souls. And he also said that, of course, the more we come here, the more and more we're going to see this. And really, it's true. I think it's much more and more prevalent. The younger generation is way more accepting of it than the older, I think people they're becoming more open to things and they're realizing more things. And Mikey said, it's the more people keep coming back to this dimension to have experiences and to work on spiritual growth, the more you're going to see this with these bleed throughs from previous lives. And
right.
People need to understand we are souls. We are not male or female. God isn't saying that this is society, old, ancient, basically BS rules that are out there.
Mikey didn't use the word BS.
No,
I'm
using that word. Now, this is me saying, but I'm saying that baloney that's out there. I mean, if people would realize that we are souls, and I know myself, Roberta, when I was younger, I was confused by this, I didn't understand it at all. And of course, being brought up strict Catholic, this was something you didn't discuss and blah, blah, blah. But yet, what Jesus taught is we're supposed to be loving and kind and not judge.
No matter what. Right.
No matter what. So it was so conflicting to me, and until Mikey's passing and all of this, I only believed you came here one time. And I thought, wow, life's really unfair if this is a one-time shot, right? I mean,
exactly
it's way too unfair. So there has to be more to the story. And obviously there is.
There is. Exactly right. Well, he said that too after he graduated and he understood what was going on.
Correct.
One of the things he regretted most was that he had been judgmental of people who were homosexual, for example.
Yes.
He had not understood, and he regretted that very much, he said, after he had gone home and had learned basically about why people have those tendencies. Thank you, Mikey. That's very, very illuminating. I mean, those are the things that I had come to understand. But I thank God that I was not born when they were now, because I would have jumped at the chance to have people give me hormones and do all the stupid things they're doing now.
Right. This is such an important piece, I think, of knowledge that he has talked to me about. And I hope, it can help so many people. And so many people are trying to, this younger generation, I know that Mikey says there's very advanced souls coming in there. They're trying to help with this. And, again, in the afterlife, Mikey talks about, we may, when we first transition, we will see our loved ones. They're either male, they'll appear to us either male or female with their energy. Sure. So we recognize them. But right. Mikey says we don't have male or female organs. That's all earth stuff. That is strictly the male and female. The sex, which Mikey says is separate from gender from his perspective, is right. Strictly for just reproduction of the earthly shell that we have. But it has nothing to do with spiritual growth or anything else in the afterlife, because we're not male or female. We are strictly souls, loving, spiritual beings. That's really what we are.
Exactly. Yep. Right. Right. That's exactly right. Mikey, that's beautiful. I love these experiences we have talking with you, because you reinforce so many positive, wonderful things here on Earth. Wonderful. All right. Well, here's a scary question. Are there any scary things in the afterlife?
Well, Mikey tells me, of course, where he is, it's beautiful, it's glorious, it's love beyond it. He says it's just the best. Okay. So the afterlife generally there's nothing scary, Mikey says, but so he does talk about, the outer darkness, which we could consider to be more scary. It's dreary, ishy. So the lower afterlife levels, Mikey says, everything, of course, is created by mind, consciousness, energy, thoughts. So we can create that. But he says, it's more, and there's ishy. I call it ishy pishy, but there's ishy pishy out there. That's, those souls that are in that state, they can always improve. So they can always get themselves out of that if they want to. There's always loving guidance available for souls that are wallowing in this misery muck of ish, I guess, is the way I describe it on the human level. But Mikey says, of course, in the general afterlife dimensions, certainly the summer lands and above are of higher vibration. And he says, the dimensions are infinite. He just goes on and on about all the dimensions, but he says it's just beautiful and glorious. But if you really want to go find Ish, I guess you can, if you so choose to. But let's just explain what the dimensions are again for people who are less familiar with them. There are, as Mikey says, there are infinite afterlife dimensions. There probably is a number, but the number is beyond what we can even calculate. Just as there are infinite radio dimensions. These are spiritual dimensions. They range from, at the highest level, even above Mikey, the Godhead level and above. We don't know what the top would be. But at the bottom is probably there probably are levels even below the material level where we are. We don't know what they would be. But we are pretty much at the bottom here. But the lowest afterlife level is what Jesus called the outer darkness. And he says, where there is wailing and gnashing of teeth. It's cold, dark, smelly, and disgusting. It's about as bad as it could be. But we are the ones who put ourselves there. It's the lowest possible afterlife level. And above that, but it's a group of levels, probably.
And above that is what we think of as level 2. And that's a little better. It's still pretty bad. Then comes levels 3 to 5. It's a group of dimensions, which where that's where we enter after death. Levels 3, 4, and 5 are what we think of as the Summerland levels, and they're beautiful. And then comes level 6, where Mikey is. Level 7 is the Godhead level. And each of these are groups of dimensions and many sort of channels within those levels. So we think of 7 levels, but each of them includes a great many sort of channels within those levels, if that makes sense. So there are 7 sort of master levels, and the lowest is that outer darkness level, which Mikey is talking about now. But Jesus talks about it in the afterlife. There is no hell, but the outer darkness will do. It's not fiery, but it is, as you say, pretty ishy. It's awful. And the only one who can put you there is yourself. If you cannot forgive yourself after death, that's where you end up, because you can't go any higher. Now, I hope that's clear to people. But, now go ahead and what does Mikey say about it?
Well, that's exactly how he has described it to me. And I think your radio frequency analogy, Roberta, is good, because Mikey says, it has to do with vibration. We're all energy. So it has to do with vibration. So these dimensions that he talks about is related to basically, like you say, a different frequency or vibrations. So that's because we are energy is really what we are. And with that outer darkness, I mean, Mikey always says, there is no eternal damnation like what we've been taught for centuries and centuries. He says we absolutely can improve ourselves and get out of that if we choose to do so, if we want to. He says there's always loving guidance there to try to help us if we need it. So that's something people need to be aware of, is that, we always have the choice to make ourselves better.
It's really unfortunate when people can't forgive themselves. This is why when we talk about spiritual matters, and we do a lot. In my book, The Fun of Growing Forever, I make a very big point of learning how to forgive yourself while you're on earth, and forgive others, because we all go through a life review after death, and it's easy to forgive other people after your death, because the concentration camp guards at Auschwitz, no problem. Easy to forgive them, because those you love are right there and they're fine. And nobody dies. It's just so easy to forgive everybody. But the one you have trouble forgiving after death is yourself. And if you can't forgive yourself, your vibration goes lower and lower and lower. And if you can't forgive yourself in the end, and there's a lot of counseling and help after death, I've got to tell you, they make a tremendous effort after you die to help you learn how to forgive yourself then. But it's tough. You think it's going to be easy because you can justify anything while you're alive. You know why you did this or you did that slimy thing on earth. But wow, it's hard to forgive yourself after death. So this is where you learn to forgive, and learn to forgive yourself here, because if you can't forgive yourself after death, as Jesus said, you're going to put yourself into the outer darkness. He knew the score, and he told us the score. So now's the time to learn to forgive. Mikey, you absolutely nailed it. That's exactly the only scary thing after death. He always nails it. Isn't it amazing? He knows everything. Mikey,
he's a humble bumble. That I will say. He is humble, though,
He is absolutely humble, but he knows everything. But that's the only thing he said that's scary after death is the outer darkness.
Pretty much. I mean, he says those dimensions. Now, again, like you mentioned even before, I mean, there's Mikey says it's just so hard for our mind when we're in the human body to understand this, but there's just lots of dimensions of different things. And so, but it's the lower vibrational dimensions that are ishy. Yes.
Yep. And easy to avoid them.
He avoids them. Yes. He tries to avoid them.
Yeah. But you can't go higher than your own personal vibration.
But you can go lower.
You can go lower, and you just don't go down there. You don't go there.
Yeah, you don't want to go there. So
that's right. All right. So I think we have time for one more question. And this is one, I think, because I get asked this actually fairly often. If there are family members you don't want to see in the afterlife, can you avoid them?
So Mikey tells me, and I think you mentioned this earlier in this podcast, is when we get back to the afterlife, we look at all this a whole lot different. And he wants to remind us that some of the people we have encountered in our lifetime here that have been the most difficult and challenging actually are the ones that can give us the best spiritual progression, depending on how we work through each given situation that we're thrown. So we take on these roles when we come here. And then when we go back, it's like, wow, that was a bad day at school with such and such or such and such. So he said, we do need to remember that someone you maybe just absolutely resent here, when you go back, you certainly will get the bigger picture of what it was all about. Okay. When we have our life review, which is just kind of an educational learning experience with our spirit guides when we return back home. So, but if we truly don't want to hang with somebody, he says, you don't have to. I mean, he says, you can be with whoever you want to be with. But he says, we do need to understand that we will look at all of this very differently, probably when we return to the afterlife, because we will see the bigger picture of how things unfolded. And of course, when we're here, again, free will choices of ours and of others changes things along the way. But one other thing, because I had asked Mikey about this, what if you have a really significant, hard family issue that has occurred during your lifetime that you just couldn't get through while you were here? Mikey says in those situations, what can happen is when you're meeting with your spirit guides, that other soul can come in and you can kind of have I don't know if you'd call it like a group discussion, I guess, in a simple way to put it in human terms. But Mikey says you kind of can work through it together to kind of see, how that situation was and how your reaction was, their reaction was, and everything. And you try to work through it and learn from the experience. He said, we are here for learning. The challenges of this dimension is because of all the differences that this has to offer us. And that's something that we work through then when we return back to the afterlife. Maggie says it's great learning that we have certain challenges that we do while we're here.
And some people find too that the people they couldn't stand here, when they have their party, and there's always a big welcome home party, and they will notice and realize when they have the party that some of the people that they couldn't stand in this life, when the person arrives at the party, they'll find out it was a wonderful eternal friend who had been that person they couldn't stand. And that person actually agreed to play that role in this life as a gift to them, to be the awful boss or to be the disgusting uncle, as a gift to them. And they just fall into one another's arms and laugh about it at the party. So the guy that you, or the woman or someone that you think you don't stand now, is going to turn out to be a wonderful eternal friend in the afterlife. You'd be amazed how often that happens.
Mikey says that is true. He said it's all for it's just for learning. Mikey says sometimes your toughest challenges that you have can bring you the best spiritual progression and growth because of those interactions. I mean, because they challenge us. And we come here, believe it or not, sometimes I wonder myself, but we come here for these challenges because the afterlife is so glorious that, you don't experience that there like what we experience here. So it's very interesting,
It does change your perspective quite a bit when you suddenly realize that the pain in the neck from this life is somewhat, you suddenly remember other lifetimes when you were, crusaders together and saved one another's lives and did this and did that together. And it really does broaden your outlook quite a bit. So, just be open-minded when you have your life review and when you have your family party or your party, your welcome home party. Oh, we could do this all day. There are many other questions that have been answered that we will talk about next time, and the next time will come up in just a couple of months. So, Carol, is there anything that you hope that especially that people take away from our conversation today?
I think today, my biggest thing would be, and I'm not communicating with Mikey right now, but I know his thoughts on this is in regards to gender and homosexuality, transgender. I hope people will understand that everybody's the same. We really are the same. We are loving souls here trying to improve ourselves. We're on a physical journey, and they are really no different than us. It is society that has labeled things. That is not God. Mikey always tells me God is love, and love can't be wrong. And so with that, I hope people will accept people for their differences. I don't care if it has to do with race or gender, nationality, your beliefs. If people just respected one another for their differences and understand that that's why we come here in the first place, is to challenge ourselves within these differences, the world could be such a better place. Because in the end, it's all about love. God is love. The beautiful afterlife dimensions are overflowing with love. What sex we are doesn't matter. What race we are doesn't matter. What beliefs we have doesn't matter. What matters is love, and we need to be kind here. That's, I guess, my last thoughts for today.
Perfectly said, Carol. Bless your heart, and give Mikey all our love.
I will do that. I'm sure he knows.
Yeah. Oh, he's one of my very, very favorite people of all. And Mikey happily welcomes your questions. You can just send them to me through the green contact block on robertagrimes.com. And MikeyMorgan.com for now will take you there as well. And at some point, he may want his own website. So we bought his name just to preserve it for him. And anytime, as I say, it's easier for you to reach Carol and Mikey through us. Meanwhile, as you know, Carol, bless your heart, and big hugs to you. And Carol is in playtime right now. She's recently retired from working, but at some point she is going to be doing, more serious work in this field. But she's devoted the rest of her life to doing Mikey's work, and I know he's very grateful to her for that. And again, we have come to the end of our time. This has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm very happy you could be with us today. Please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you really get what that means, it changes everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be Jacob Cooper, who will be here with us for the second time to talk about his second book, The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. Jacob had a remarkable near-death experience when he was 3 years old, very, very young, and now is a clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and Reiki practitioner. That experience still informs his work. I hope you'll join us next week. And this week, our wonderful friends Carol and Mikey Morgan have been with us for the 19th time. I remain astonished by the incredible depth of knowledge and understanding of the greater reality and what goes on in that very much wider world Mikey Morgan patiently brings to us. We speak as if he's just our friend Carol Morgan's son, but Mikey is an ascended being. Once I asked my spirit guide Thomas, who is at the upper 5th level, so he's no slouch himself, I asked him how far above him Mikey Morgan is, and he said, well, I can look up and I see a star from here, and that star is Mikey Morgan. That's how far above me in development he is. So the fact that Mikey is so willing to answer our questions this way is a kindness beyond belief. We are very grateful to our illustrious friend Mikey that he will do this for us. And as just a quick reminder, Mikey's book, Flying High in Spirit, is the best account of its kind of what it's like to die here and go home that I have ever read. Mikey personally wrote every word of it. And now, of course, it's time once again to mention that Seek Reality Online is your one-stop resource for all things death and the afterlife. Just go to seekreality.com and start to learn for yourself what really is going on. And learn the fact that you are a powerful, eternal being. It is impossible for you ever to die. Seekreality.com. You can begin today to learn that your reality really is eternal. As you know, my own nonfiction books are Liberating Jesus, My Thomas, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, The Fun of Growing Forever, The Fun of Living Together, and The Fun of Loving Jesus, Embracing the Christianity that Jesus taught. For young children, there's The Fun of Meeting Jesus, and you can order all these books through bookstores on Amazon.com or on BarnesandNoble.com. All of the adult books but the last are also available as audiobooks. And if you want to talk to me about anything at all, or if you just want to say hi, you can always contact me through the green contact block on RobertaGrimes.com. I answer every email, but sometimes they bounce, so please be sure to give me your correct email address. Past episodes of Seek Reality are available wherever podcasts are found. And meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all, in the whole universe, you are infinitely loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at RobertaGrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.